Hello everyone, Jacquie Edwards here for Live at Lunchtime. It has been quite a long time since I've done a Live at Lunchtime. I must say things got a little hectic and then got a little lazy over the summer and relaxed a bit, and then things have just gotten really hectic again. But I am back. I did really miss doing these. This is something that I actually really enjoyed doing. So I don't know if it'll be daily going forward. I'll have to see just how my schedule goes and how things are going. But I do have quite a bit of learnings that I've had over the past few months, and quite a few things that I do want to share that I think will be really helpful for everybody doing rent-to-rent or just property in general. So yeah, welcome to the new Live at Lunchtime. It is a little bit different timing than I was doing before, but anyways, I'll make sure I get a schedule and some reminders set up so that if you are interested in joining live, you can. I would love to get some of your biggest questions that I can cover on them, and I always love to have a bit of live interaction as well. So yeah, stay tuned for more information. Otherwise, I had a request. So if you've seen my Facebook ad, all about rent-to-rent contracts. So I do have some rent-to-rent contracts available now on the website at renttorentacademy.co.uk. And so I've had a couple people ask me a few questions around, how to answer a landlord or an agent when they ask certain questions. And my response has always been, well, that stuff is what's going to be covered in your contract. So if you read through your contract or just make sure you've got a good contract, then all of those questions are answered. And one of the things that I do when I go to meet a new landlord or a new agent for the first time is I've got a little marketing pack that I take with me. And that marketing pack basically has a little bit of information about me and my company and what we do. So I call them my little FAQs or my one-pagers. And it also, I put in a draft copy of my contract. I tend to start with a commercial lease agreement, so everybody gets a draft copy of my commercial lease agreement so that they can read through it and get an understanding of the more detailed terms and conditions. I really recommend having something written down that you can give to people, just because not everybody can remember everything that you talk about at a meeting. It can be a little bit overwhelming. That way they can take it home with them and read it in their kind of spare time, when they're a little bit more relaxed and they've got more time to think about things. If they've got a partner, that it'll be easier for them to share the information with their partner firsthand versus them trying to kind of parse what you had told them. So yeah, having that marketing document and having that lease agreement or that management agreement that you can give to them just so that they can read it over in their leisure. And that is going to answer a lot of their questions. So a good contract will have all of the details about things like what happens if you don't pay the rent, what happens if you go bankrupt, what happens if one of the parties dies, things like that. That will all be covered in your contract. So I wanted to answer a couple of those questions here and now, besides just saying get a contract. What your contract should be saying and what you can be answering people if they're asking you these questions and you don't have your contract ahead of time is, so first of all, what happens if the rent-to-renter doesn't pay the landlord? So if the landlord asks you that, the answer is it's whatever's in the contract, but your contract will say something like, if you haven't paid within 14 days, then, you'll start charging interest at X percentage above base rate. If, you haven't paid within 30 days, then, maybe the owner is able to kind of take possession of the property again. So and those terms are whatever you want to negotiate. So it's whatever you want to put into your contract, but it will be something like that. So you can say, Mr. Landlord, if I don't pay you the rent on time, after 14 days, this is what'll happen. You'll start being able to start charging me interest, or maybe there's a penalty fee. And after 30 days, if I haven't paid you the rent, you can come back in and take over possession of the property and collect rent directly from the tenants. So that should help put their mind at ease about this. I know a big question is, because we often talk about with rent to rent, we say, we're guaranteeing your rent and they're saying, well, what's the guarantee? What happens if you don't pay me? There is always an option of getting a rent guarantee insurance contract. So if you want to go that route, you can have something about that in your contract, and you can offer that to the owner. I don't do the rent guarantee insurance. For me, it's about building up that relationship with the owner so that they trust me and they know I'm credible. And it's showing them in the contract, we're signing this legally binding document. I'm saying if I don't pay you the rent, you can have your property back and you can collect the rent directly from the tenants and get it that way. So it's not like, and it's telling them our contract between you and me, it's not like a residential tenancy where you have to give me, 2 months notice, and then we have to get the courts and the bailiffs involved if you want to kick me out. You don't have to follow any of that stuff for, between you and the owner as the renter. So he can just take over possession of the property, give the tenants notice that, hey, you're now paying rent into my bank account. There's a specific form for that, and things can go along easily from there. So there aren't any long possession rules like there would be if you were just a normal residential tenant on an AST agreement. So that's what would be in your contract to protect the owner for if you don't pay. Be something similar if you go bankrupt. My contracts generally say, as soon as you've declared bankruptcy, or even if you're starting to really think about bankruptcy, they have the right to repossess the property and start collecting rents directly from the tenants. So if they ask you what happens if you, the renter, go bankrupt, you would say, well, as soon as we started any proceedings or discussing any type of bankruptcy or administration or winding up proceedings, you could immediately get back possession of your property. So that way they again, there's no long drawn out eviction process with you as the renter. They can just come in, tell the tenants to start paying them rent, and just move along from there. So it's not a difficult process. It's in your contract. It's all legally binding. You are acting as a company, or whether you've got that limited company or not, it's you signing it. As soon as you move towards any administration or bankruptcy proceedings, they get possession of the property again. Another big question is what happens if you or the landlord, you the renter or the landlord, dies. And this can be specifically listed in your contract if you want it to be. Otherwise, it's just what would normally happen in any kind of transaction. If one of the parties dies, it would just go through their estates. If you've got a limited company, then it's just saying, everything will carry on exactly as it is. This is a limited company. If I die, somebody else will be taking over. I've got a team, I've got my partner, whoever it is, things will just carry on as they are. If you, Mr. Landlord, die, then it would just go through your estate. We've got this contract in place on this property. It would just go through the normal kind of procedures of whatever's in your will, however you've passed this property on to kind of your inheritors. They would just take over the contract. And I always tell my landlords, if there is any problem and, if something does happen to you and, your family or whoever inherits doesn't want to continue this contract, we are people as well. And we can come to some kind of agreement. We're not just going to lock you in and never let you out. There may be some penalty fees associated just so that we don't end up losing a whole bunch of money depending on where we're at in the contract. But if you've got any problems at any time, or, if your family does afterwards, it's okay. Just talk to us and we can come to some kind of agreement on there. So those are probably the three biggest questions I tend to get asked that are answered easily within the contract. So if you're getting asked questions like that regularly, which you probably are if you're getting kind of far enough down the negotiations, then having that blank draft contract that you can give to landlords and agents is going to make your life super, super easy and simple. And if you think about it from just a business point of view, so if you think about letting agents, they've just got a standard contract, and this is the contract that they use with every single one of their letting clients. So they don't kind of do bespoke contracts for absolutely everybody and say, oh, we can write whatever we want, whatever you want into the contract. It's completely up to you. That starts to sound a little bit shady. Even if you think you're being super flexible and you're being really helpful in working around what they want and how they're doing it, I really recommend just saying, here's our standard contract. Read it through. If there's anything you're unsure of, or that you would want to be changed, just let us know and we can speak to our solicitor about it. But otherwise, these are our standard terms and conditions. So make sure that they work for you. We always recommend that the landlord has their solicitor look at the contract. Most of them, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them have ever had their solicitor look at the contract, but I always recommend it and say, you should have your legal representative have a look at the contract to make sure that, all the conditions are okay with whatever your situation is. I don't go into loads of detail about their mortgage or their insurance. I just have it in the contract saying, your mortgage and your insurance are your responsibility. You need to make sure this contract is appropriate for your situation. And again, they should have a solicitor that'll be able to tell them if it's appropriate for their situation or not. So put that onus on them. Don't get sucked into offering them advice, any kind of financial advice, mortgage advice, or insurance advice. These are regulated activities, so you want to make sure that you're not giving them any kind of advice in any way. So by just being able to say, here's the basics of what happens, everything's in the contract, have a read through the contract and make sure you talk to your solicitor about it. That will cover you in the future. So I highly recommend, if you're just getting started out and you haven't got a rent-to-rent contract or you haven't seen one, then I do have some available on my website at renttorentacademy.co.uk. These are based on the contracts that I use in my business. So they haven't been written by my solicitor. They are just rewrites of the contracts that I use. So they're really for educational purposes. So they're for these situations where you have this rent-to-rent deal or you're going to look at a property and you just want to be able to give them, here are what our general contract looks like, or for just your information, because so many of the questions that your landlords and your agents are asking you, they are covered in the standard contracts that you would be using for any rent-to-rent agreement. So just having that agreement there and available is going to answer so many of your questions. Honestly, I found that when I got started, I did get started and I didn't have any contracts, and I just went out and I was trying to explain this to people, and these are the questions they were asking me, and I didn't really know the answer to it. But once I got a copy of my contract from my solicitor, I said, please just write me a general rent-to-rent contract that, we can tweak if we need to, but just so that I've got something to show people and that I've got something so I understand what the transaction is. Things got a lot easier from there. So I've got some available if you want them. Highly recommend that you have some that you can look through. I'm back for live at lunchtime, so that's it for today. But if you've got questions for next time, let me know. You can send me a message on Facebook. I don't check my messages load, so don't ask. But I will use it for my next live at lunchtime. You can pop it in the comments here and I will have a look. And stay tuned. I will do some more live at lunchtimes next week, and we'll get back into a good routine so that I can share with you all the stuff that I've learned over the past few months. We've had new rent-to-rents come on. I've been making some changes in my team. So that's been quite interesting. And I'd love to share a lot of that with you because I've had a lot of learnings about, just building my team and scaling my rent-to-rent business. So whereas a lot of you are probably just getting started, but at some point, if you do want to turn your business into a more passive income, having that team in place is what's going to allow you to scale. So I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of the stuff that I've learned about teams, what to do, what not to do, what to look for when you're hiring somebody. So I'm really excited to share that over the next few weeks and months as we go forward too. So otherwise, if you do know anyone in Oxford that's looking for a property job, I do have 2 positions available in the company that we're looking to fill quite quickly. So I've got my tenant happiness manager, or my tenant happiness associate, I think I called it, who is our property manager, basically, that will do the day-to-day property management. And I've got my tenant sales associate, who is kind of our lettings manager, so doing viewings and things. So if you know anyone in Oxford that might be interested in doing some work, get in touch with me. Check out the Jade Roomlet's website. We've got the job specific specs on there. But thank you so much for joining me again today for the first live in lunchtime in quite a while. Any questions about contracts, let me know. Otherwise, check out the website. I will be revamping the website quite soon as well. So If there's things that you've seen on there now, you should probably check them out, because I'm going to be retiring some things and putting some things just into my membership group so that only my members and my VIP members can get them. So anyways, that's it. I will stop rambling. I've got to go to the gym now. So have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you again soon.